afternoon, everybody. I am Bert Eyler, and I'm with my co-host, Jim Fotis. This is PODC, the Hill Report. This is our first episode. We're going to give you a 2025 summary of what we did up on the Hill, and we'll kind of explain what's going on in the world. Like I said, my name is Bert Eyler. I am the president of Police Officers Defense Coalition. My background is I'm a Marine, and I did 25 years in law enforcement here in Northern Virginia. Jim and I have known each other for over 20 years, and I'll turn it over to Jim.
Well, Bert, thank you for starting us off. You did a great job as usual. Bert, as president, PODC, Police Officer Defense Coalition, has done an incredible job during 2025 of promoting police legislation on the Hill. He is one of the best lobbyists, in my opinion, that's up there. He is following all of the most important legislations, from qualified immunity to the legislation that will affect everybody at the local level, to the state level, to the federal level. We've been pushing legislation for the last 3 years. I'm the vice president of Police Officers Defense Coalition, and I am doing most of the background administrative work, but I'm also there for Bert for whatever else I can do to help him do his lobbying, help him get up on the Hill, and I'm here to ask him some questions, give him some answers, and move our podcast forward, and hope that everybody likes our first.
Yeah, so do I. You're going to give me more answers than you are questions. I know that, because that's just you, Jim. End of story. But can you tell everybody a little bit about your background?
Yes, of course. I was a police officer in New York for 14 years. I was injured in the job. I left on a disability. I left as the highest and most decorated officer in the history of my department. And after that, I ran the Law Enforcement Alliance for 23 years out of Virginia. And I wrote the H.R. 218, which most law enforcement officers know. President Bush signed it into law in 2003, and now police officers, both active and retired, can carry anywhere in the United States or any territory of the United States. And we're also working on getting that changed so that we don't have to every year as police officers go out and get trained and have to recertify. Most people get carry permits in different states, and they don't have to get recertified for 7 years. As police officers, to carry in every state, we have to get recertified. That was not my intent. We're going to try and change that. But as I said, I did write that. I did also write many other pieces of legislation as the executive director of the Law Enforcement Alliance of America, and we can talk about some of that as we go through this, and some new legislation that Bert and I have put together and that Bert is promoting up on a Hill.
Well, you just wrapped that up. Check. Done. Now. Really, Jim, I think going on with what you were saying about H.R. 218, the bill actually passed the House. It's the Leo's Reform Act. And we passed the House, actually the last two sessions, the 118th, 119th, the House passed it. We're trying to get the Senate to pass it, and hopefully we'll get it passed so we can get it into law during Police Week. And just like Jim was saying, one of the things about the Reform Act is changing the time frame from every year to every 3 years, but they're leaving that up to the states. So it's not going to be federally mandated, but it's in there to where if the states want to allow their retired officers every 3 years and 1 year, or it could be every 2 years, it'll be up to the state. But that did pass the House.
Yeah, it's amazing, don't you think, Bert, that police officers either being on a 20-year on the job 20 or 25 years that we have to go out and get recertified every year to be able to carry interstate while other people can carry in most of the states on a state permit or a state license.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, they get recertified every, like, depending on the state, 5 years. I'm going to say is the average. But it's just a background check. It's not like they have to go through any extra training. They just get a background check to make sure they haven't done anything illegally in those 5 years. So that's the part that baffles me. I don't mind, having to recert, but I don't think it has to be every year. I mean, we did it for 25 years.
I agree with you.
Right? So we have that experience. Well, we'll figure it out. Some of the other great things for 2025 is the Law Enforcement Wellness Through Data Act that we got passed through the House. What that is doing is having the Attorney General put together a report on the violence against law enforcement, ambushes, severe, shootings, putting that together as a report to show people out there that the violence towards law enforcement is going up. So I think that's big, but there again, it passed in the 118th Congress, 119th Congress on the House side, still sitting on the Senate side waiting to be passed. Some of the other good things last year is the Chief Herbert Profit Act. That was signed into law, believe the beginning of this year, but we were pushing that for the past 2 years. And we finally got that passed with the help of, it was actually Congressman Barr's bill that we were able to help put into law, which was really good for us. I think, we pushed it really hard for him. And he's now running for senator. So, it's a big loss on the House side, but a big gain on the Senate side to get him in as a senator. And what that bill was saying is Chief Profit was a retired chief, and an individual got out of prison, tracked him down, and killed him for, when he was in law enforcement. But because he was retired, he didn't fall under the Leo's death benefits. So what this law is now saying is if you're retired and you are attacked, murdered by someone because you were a police officer, you're covered under Leo's. It's not you get in a car accident or something like that when you're retired. This is dealing with on-duty incidents that happen when you had been retired. So I think that is really, really big.
Yeah, and that happens more than once. People don't realize how you come in contact with someone that you've arrested many years before, and all of a sudden they're out and they're looking for you or or your family.
Yeah, and as you know, going up on the Hill, up there every Tuesdays and Thursdays, pushing it. But we had the opportunity, thanks to you, Jim, Sheriff Jesse Slaughter out of Montana. You met him at an NRA conference. And I had talked to him because I do a lot of the stuff on the Hill. Jim's like, you got to talk to him. And he had a great idea on how to supplement the SRO program nationwide. And as my last 6 years, I was a school resource officer, loved every minute of it. I think was the greatest job I had in law enforcement was being an SRO. But throughout these years, you saw it starting with George Floyd to defund the police. And a lot of people were saying, hey, we don't need SROs in schools. It's a pipeline to prison. I saw it as a liaison to bridge that gap with young teens, right? To get them to understand, hey, we're not bad. We're here to help you. What do you need? Well, since defund the police was happening so badly, we lost a lot of SROs. They took them out. Now they're trying to build it back up, but police departments are short. So talking with Sheriff Slaughter, he had an idea of subsidizing the SRO program with retired law enforcement and military and having them do part-time either security or be an SRO. It all depends on the jurisdiction, but you still have to be certified. And during that time as an SRO, the caveat is your pension, whether it's state or federal, is tax exempt on the federal side as long as you're in the SRO program. We thought that was great, so we drew up some legislation, and he went to Senator Sheehy. Senator Tim Sheehy is out of Montana as well, so he got his team on it, drew up legislation for it, and we introduced it. And Congressman Ryan Zinke on the House side introduced the same bill. So I think that will be really good. So as long as you're working on it, and then the other thing is if you do your SRO for 10 years, Jim, and you get out after 10 years, your pension is federally tax exempt for the rest of your life.
Which is incredible.
Right. And it's just, to me, it's just bringing people in to help out. Right. And it's also giving those retirees something to do, or, to give back to the community, because, when you retired, I retired, it was great to retire, but you missed it. So
right.
To allow officers, and I think you probably, in military, you probably get that, 2 to 3 year officer that's retired. You're not going to get somebody that's been retired for, 10 years, 6, 7, 8 years. It's that transition. Like, what do I do? Because when you retired, when I was retired, it's like, what am I going to do? All right, I got to do something. So, but when we both retired, we were like, look what we're doing now, Police Officers Defense Coalition. So, so I think that's really big. What is your take on it? I mean, I think we did a great job. I mean, we're working hard on it.
I think, Bert, you've done a great job on the Hill. You've gotten bipartisan support, House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans. And today, in light of everything that's going on, right there, that's a great move. It's very difficult to get bipartisan support on anything, and to get bipartisan support on a bill that exempts law enforcement and military on their pensions, I think is a wonderful step forward. And to get these guys out working, keeping their minds busy, keeping them from thinking about what they used to do. We know that the suicide rate, especially in military and ex-law enforcement, is very high. Got to get them out there doing something that they like, something that is helpful, and something that will keep their minds sharp. And this legislation, putting more SROs in schools, people that are trained, people that have really done the job, know what they're doing. And I have to refer to recently in Michigan, I believe it was Detroit, a synagogue was attacked, and the gentleman who took out the shooter was trained. I don't know if he was ex-military, but he was trained by the FBI, and he took out the shooter right away. Basically stopped many people from being hurt and killed. And this is what we need. These people know what they're doing. Put them in schools, and they can help if anybody tries to take over that school.
Yeah, you also had here in Virginia, Old Dominion University down in Virginia Beach. You had somebody, a terrorist attack where he came in and shot the professor. I believe it was an ROTC class, and one of the ROTC members, they were able to subdue him. And actually, I believe, according to the media, there was a fight, and he ended up stabbing the suspect and killing him and saving lives because he was on a rampage. He was getting ready to shoot a lot more people, which goes to show you what's going on in the world and how that is changing. We talk about up on the Hill too, defunding ICE and defunding, Homeland Security is like, you're up there every day and then you're wondering, why are these members of Congress wanting to defund a organization that is trying to save America in reference to, security. And if you don't have them, they're going to start flooding back in from the last administration. What is your take on that as far as not
I
being able to
agree.
pass a budget.
I agree. I don't understand why the Democrats would want to stop these important organizations from the government, ICE, Homeland Security, from being out there doing their job when we had so many illegal criminal aliens come across the border in the last 4 years that have tried to take over everything from cities, apartment buildings, different places. They've gone out there, ICE, and I believe they have deported almost 3 million people so far. And
That's
now
amazing.
they're stopping them from doing that. And I feel that the Democrats have to wake up and say, we really are with the American people. I believe most American people want their communities safe. And one thing that you always say, Bert, is if one of these illegals go and stay with somebody who's been here a number of years, and even though he may be illegal, he is a productive citizen paying taxes and everything, but if you harbor one of these criminals and ICE goes to pick him up, and they find out that you're illegal, you're here illegally. You're breaking the law. And that's part of life. You go out, you go back to your country.
No, I agree with you. And like we've talked about it before, it's like everybody's angry. It's like, well, they broke the law and came here illegally. Or, and they're also, checking to see, okay, what's their status, right? Because every time, past administrations, you're here illegally, okay, you get your hearing date where you got to go before the federal judge, and then, you may have to go back several times, but then they'll finally give you a final deportation order, and then they'll give you, that time to be deported. Okay, if you don't show up, they're going to come and get you. You went through the legal process, so you should be deported.
I agree. And if you don't show up for that hearing, then you're already here illegally. You have to show up for those hearings before the judge. You're given them when you come into this country. You're claiming that you're, politically, you have to leave your country, and then you need to show up for these hearings, or else you are here illegally, and you may be here 20 years, but you're still here illegally, and you're harboring a criminal if he's coming to you to hide.
Right. When you look at, like, for law enforcement with that, now you're putting more and more officers in danger, right? They're going out there when they could just go pick them up at the jail and, take them federally. But because you're in a sanctuary city, now they have to go find them. Now you're putting the officer in danger. You're putting the community in danger. But I don't understand why no one's seeing that. It's across the board.
We're willing to give asylum to anybody, but at least follow our laws.
Right. No, I agree with you. Wholeheartedly. When you look at other countries, they're doing the same thing. I think Denmark has just said, you have to adhere to our laws and our rules, and there's no more face coverings or anything like that. You have to assimilate into their society, which I think is a great idea.
I know. And if you look at the UK, the people that came there over the last 30 or 40 years, they did not assimilate. And that's become a problem.
Yeah. And then going back to also some of the stuff on the Hill, I'm going to kind of loop it back. I know our biggest one when we started the coalition was qualified immunity.
Yes.
And I'll tell everybody out there who's watching, I thought I had qualified immunity for 25 years until I met Jim. And then he told me how qualified immunity is, and I'll let him explain what qualified immunity is real quick.
Okay. We could go through the legally what qualified immunity is, but the way I like to explain qualified immunity is if you're just a citizen or somebody, a nurse or a doctor, because all these people qualify, it should be covered under qualified immunity. Politicians are covered under qualified immunity. But say you're driving home from work and you're an EMT or somebody who's qualified and you see a car accident, and you pull that person out of the car, and as you're pulling them out, you're grabbing hold of them and you squeeze their arm or you hurt them a little bit trying to get them out so you can pull them away from the car because the car may blow up and they're injured, and then after the fact, and you've helped them, but if you don't have qualified immunity, because this is during the course of your job or during the course of you helping them, you've injured them in some way, but in turn helped them. But they turn around and sue you because you don't have qualified immunity. So therefore, even though you're doing an act of mercy to help, you can be sued under that. So, but qualified immunity, as long as you're doing something within the way you were trained and within the purview of help, would cover you, and you cannot be sued. And that has passed in many states. As a passerby and you help somebody, you cannot be sued. Police officers, if you're going on a call and you're trying to help somebody in a heated family disturbance and you try to pull somebody away, pull people apart, you look at them in a way that may be determined that you're looking at them nasty, whatever, they can sue you for just the way you look at them if you don't have qualified immunity. It goes down to the military, it goes down to correctional officers, it goes all the way down the line to, as I said, to nurses, doctors, and so on. So we're trying to get qualified immunity to protect police officers, which they haven't had, and many departments have thought they had it. There are different types of qualified immunity that have passed in different states. But the truth is, unless we codify immunity at the federal level, you will not be protected by it.
Right. And then what you end up having to do, if we don't have it codified, you have to, take it to the U.S. Supreme Court, but you have to wait, right? So, hey, I don't have it. They don't give it to you. You get sued. Then you have to spend more money to, take it to the next level and the next level. And, and it's crazy that you have to do that, right? But like you said, I think if we codify it, it will, I think, let officers across the nation know, hey, we have your back, right? Because there's cases at Colorado. There's a decision out of the Ninth Circuit where officers weren't given qualified immunity for doing their job. I mean, I researched that one. They didn't do anything wrong. And are there some officers that make bad judgments? Yes, but I think it comes down to malice. Like, they did it, in a wrong way, and they knew they were doing it wrong. I think that's kind of how I look at it too, is if you're doing the job the way you've been trained, you should be covered. You should be penalized.
That's right. And you've been working with Senator Banks on his qualified immunity.
Yeah, it's a great bill because it helps define, it's that split second decision. That's really what it is. Like, is that split second decision violating, the constitutional rights of the individual? Did you do something wrong? But you should have to know it. A reasonable and prudent officer in your position, would they have made the same decision? Right? 99% of all these cases, yes, they would have made the same decision. Are there really bad decisions that constitute, not getting qualified immunity? There's some out there, but I think if somebody makes a bad decision and they don't get qualified immunity, they knew what they're doing was wrong. That's how I see it.
And up until recently, it's been based on a 1977 Supreme Court decision. If you do get qualified immunity,
Correct.
Bert? Yes.
Yeah, from 1967. And there's some other
67,
cases.
okay.
There are some other cases, before that. But I think, why do we always have to leave it in the U.S. Supreme Court's hands? Why do we always have to take it to that level where we can define it and allow that to stand? Now, are there going to be people that disagree? Yes, but let's have a debate on it. These are what we believe in as officers of, between the two of us over, I think, almost 40 years of law enforcement experience.
Yes.
Right? So why not? I think by codifying it too, we'll start saying, okay, hey, now you may have officers that know about this stuff. Be like, okay, maybe I'll get back into, maybe I will get into law enforcement now that you have, that we have codified, qualified immunity, it's codified. But I think that's just not the only reason why we're short, Jim. And I think I'll change it to, short staff nationwide. I think qualified immunity is one, but I think you also have the rhetoric that is out there on your, local, state, and federal officials that, demonize law enforcement. No matter what law enforcement does, it's always negative. Very rarely do you see in the media things that are good about law enforcement. It's a shooting. Well, now we're going to blame everybody. And I use Austin, Texas, their recent shooting, right? The guy was armed. They shot him. And the DA wanted to take those 3 officers to the grand jury. But I just read recently he's not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because he got a lot of pressure. So, I think we need to start going back to saying, okay, really good training, the best of the best, standards, bring those standards up. Across the board, you see standards dropping a little bit just to get officers. I both would say I'd rather work with the best of the best than working with the best people or working short. Because if you get subpar people, I'm not saying that these people are bad people, they just don't have what it takes to be law enforcement or, any public service. It could be firefighters, it could be military. There's a certain mentality that you have to have going into it. And if you don't have it, you shouldn't be hired. And that's why I always say the standards should be higher than hire the best, because then when it comes to those decisions making, those de-escalations, those, opportunities where somebody would maybe take a bribe, they won't do it. When you have the best of the best, it's not going to happen. And I think those are the things that will change law enforcement. And that's why, you and I are doing what we're doing up on the Hill to try and get, that mentality back with leadership to praise law enforcement, make it get back to the professional standards that it was at, and stop demonizing them. Because when you're constantly demonizing them, to me, that lets the public know, well, hey, these individuals in these positions of authority pretty much are insinuating, don't listen to police and get into a fight. And, when we see a lot of those videos, they're antagonizing the cops.
That's right. I mean, and what you said about lowering the standards, we saw I think the biggest win we saw in 2025, Bert, were the 20 officers that were in the academy and relieved from duty in New York City. And then they went to a judge, and the judge reinstated them. They had such horrible performance and horrible records that
I think it was criminal history records, wasn't it? They had some pretty bad criminal history.
Pretty criminal history records. And they were let go because of that. And then this judge puts them back on the job. So to me, we have to hire, like you said, the best of the best. People that also want to be in law enforcement. They believe in the job. And like you've coined a phrase, without law and order, we have chaos, and that's what's going to happen. These departments are going to fall apart hiring people like this. At one time going back, the biggest drug group was being run from the Washington, D.C. jails. So that was one of the biggest drug organizations being run right out of the jail. Things fall apart. We got to keep them together. We got to hire the best.
Yeah, no, I agree. And looping back around towards the end of our podcast, I think one of the bills that I'm proud of helping get passed and moving forward is the medal of sacrifice. President Trump last summer issued three medal of sacrifices to three law enforcement officers out of Florida, and Congressman Brian Mast out of Florida took the executive order, wrote it up into a bill called the Medal of Sacrifice. Just recently, it passed the Judiciary Committee and passed the House floor by voice vote. And now I'm working with Senator Graham's office to get it passed through the Senate side. So hopefully we'll have that passed, which I'm really excited about if we can get that passed, because that's just not law enforcement. People think the medal of sacrifice is just, okay, we're just honoring law enforcement. It's not. It's law enforcement. It's also fire and rescue. And we added the Native American law enforcement also, which I think sometimes they're forgotten about. So I thought it was a good idea to add that. I made that request, and they added it into the medal of sacrifice. So hopefully we can get that passed, and they're gonna, once it's passed, there'll be a committee, and that committee will look at all the applications and start issuing that. I think it's a great presidential medal. I think it's awesome.
I think once again showing how much work Bert has been doing up on the Hill. We are up there, as he said, every Tuesday, every Thursday. Bert is up there promoting these pieces of legislation that promote and protect both law enforcement and citizens.
Yeah. So for everybody, we appreciate your time. If you like our podcast, please let us know. You can also follow us on our Facebook page. You can go to our website at www.policeofficersdefensecoalition.com. You can also look at our website. We have a scorecard of all the representatives and how they rate when it comes to law enforcement issues. We also have all the list of all our bills that we are championing, trying to get passed. And those are just a small tidbit of what laws are really good, but these are the ones that we have really picked out that we're really focusing on. All of them are bipartisan. I shouldn't say all of them, but I'd say most of them are bipartisan. So I think come Police Week, we should have a lot of good bills being signed by President Trump. So if you guys really like us, let us know. Until next time, God bless, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.